I never expected to fall for the guy who used to make my life miserable, but somehow, that's exactly what happened. Back in high school, Josh Langston was the name that made me brace myself every time I walked into a room. He wasn't a bully in the traditional sense. He didn't shove me into lockers or steal my lunch money. No, his attacks were subtle, almost surgical. Sarcastic comments, the occasional smirk, and those perfectly timed one-liners that would get everyone else laughing, and me clenching my jaw. He was a star athlete, effortlessly cool, with the kind of swagger that made people listen when he spoke. I was the quiet guy in the back of the room, head down, earphones in, just trying to make it through the day without drawing attention. We weren't in the same social circles, didn't have the same friends, and definitely didn't hang out. I thought I'd never see him again after graduation. Turns out, the universe had other plans. It was my second year in college when he showed up again. I was working part-time at a campus cafe, juggling coursework and late-night shifts, when one afternoon he walked in like a scene straight out of my past. Same confident walk, same lazy smile, but this time, something was different. "Eli?" he asked, tilting his head as he looked at me behind the register. My stomach twisted. "Yeah." "Josh, right?" He smiled like it was no big deal, like we were old friends catching up. "Didn't know you went here." I forced a nod, punching in his order. "Yeah, well, surprise." He didn't say anything about high school, just gave me a once-over and added, "You look good." I raised an eyebrow. "Thanks?" That should have been the end of it. Just a weird encounter with a ghost from the past. But Josh kept coming back. Every few days, there he was, always ordering the same iced coffee, always choosing the seat by the window where he could see me working. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then I thought maybe he was just being polite. But after the 5th visit, when he started asking questions about my major, my classes, what I like to do on weekends, I realized this wasn't just friendly small talk. The conversations got longer. We'd chat during slow hours, sometimes even after my shift ended. He was different now. Still confident, still sharp, but more thoughtful, softer around the edges. I didn't know what to make of it. One night, he invited me to a party. "It's not some frat thing," he said quickly. "Just a few people, chill vibe. Thought you might want to come." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to say no, but something in his eyes made me pause. "All right," I said. "I'll come." That night changed everything. The party was at some off-campus house, filled with dim lights, loud music, and people I barely knew. Josh stuck by my side the whole time, introducing me to his friends, getting me drinks, laughing at my awkward jokes like they were actually funny. It was late when we ended up on the back porch, the music muffled behind the sliding door. We sat side by side on the steps, the cold air biting at our skin. "I used to be kind of a dick to you," he said suddenly. I turned to look at him. "Kinda?" He winced. "Yeah, okay. A total dick. I'm sorry." The apology hit me harder than I expected. I didn't realize how much I'd needed to hear it. "Thanks," I said quietly. There was a long pause. Then he added, "I think I was just confused about a lot of things." I didn't say anything, just waited. "I liked you," he said. "Still do." My heart stopped. This was the same guy who once made fun of me for bringing a rainbow flag to school during Pride Week. And now he was sitting next to me, confessing something I never imagined hearing. "I don't expect anything," he added quickly. "I just needed you to know." I looked at him for a long time, trying to piece together everything I was feeling. Then I said the only thing I could think of. "Okay," and I meant it. After that night on the porch, things weren't the same between us. Josh didn't push, and I didn't exactly run, but we entered this strange limbo where every interaction carried more weight than it should have. He still came by the cafe, more often actually. And now it wasn't just casual conversation. He'd linger, help me wipe tables when my shift ended, sometimes just hang around even if he wasn't ordering anything. There was something in the way he looked at me, like he was waiting for me to say something, or maybe just hoping I'd stop pretending I didn't feel the shift too. But I didn't know how to feel. For so long, Josh had been this weird combination of my high school nightmare and a symbol of everything I wasn't. And now, here he was, smiling at me like I was the only person in the room. Then, about a week later, he asked me out. Not like a casual grab a bite kind of thing. No, he actually said the word date. It was after I closed up shop for the night. We were outside, the city already quieting down, and I was locking the door when he turned to me and said, "You free Friday night?" "Why?" He hesitated just for a second, then shrugged. "I was thinking maybe we could go out. Like dinner, a movie, whatever you want." I stared at him, half expecting a punchline. But he was serious. "You're asking me out?" "Yeah," he said simply. "I am." I wanted to say yes. Hell, a part of me was already screaming it. But instead, what came out was, "Why me?" Josh frowned. "What do you mean?" I leaned back against the door, folding my arms. "You could have anyone. You're you. Why me?" He looked down for a moment, then back up at me with this expression that was way too sincere to be comfortable. "Because I feel like myself when I'm around you. And that's not something I've had a lot of in my life." That caught me off guard. I didn't answer right away. Just let the silence stretch between us until it felt like the whole city had paused to hear my response. Then finally, I said, "All right, Friday." The way he smiled at that, like I'd handed him the world, made something shift in my chest. Friday came, and Josh actually picked me up. In his beat-up Jeep with the busted stereo and that awful pine-scented air freshener. He was wearing a button-up shirt that he kept fidgeting with, clearly nervous in a way I'd never seen before. We went to this little Thai place tucked away on a quiet side street. It wasn't fancy, but it was nice. Low lighting, shared plates, and enough quiet to actually talk. And we did. About everything. High school, college, our families. I found out his dad left when he was 10, that his mom worked 2 jobs, that most of the swagger was just armor he learned to put on early. Somewhere between the curry and the check, something shifted again. He wasn't the guy who used to mock me in the hallways anymore. He wasn't even the guy who walked into my cafe with that old familiar smirk. He was just Josh. Messy, imperfect, kind of a smartass, and maybe someone I was starting to fall for. After dinner, we drove around for a bit, neither of us ready to end the night. We ended up parked by the river, watching the lights reflect off the water. "You know," Josh said quietly, "I didn't think I'd get this far." I looked at him. "What do you mean?" He chuckled, a little self-deprecating. "I figured you'd tell me to go to hell, or ignore me. But instead, you gave me a chance. I don't really know what to do with that." I thought for a second, then reached over and rested my hand on his. "You could start with this," I said. "Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop." Josh looked at me, eyes a little wide, and I could see the exact moment he decided to stop overthinking. He leaned in, slow and hesitant, giving me every chance to back out. I didn't. Our first kiss was tentative, warm, and surprisingly soft. It didn't feel like a grand moment or something cinematic. It just felt real, honest. Like we were rewriting everything. After that night by the river, everything felt different, but not in the way I expected. Josh and I didn't start parading around campus holding hands or changing our relationship status. Nothing that dramatic. But something between us had clearly changed. It was there in the way he looked at me, a little softer now. The way he touched my arm when we laughed, or how he lingered when we said goodbye, like the moment didn't want to end yet. Still, we kept things quiet. I wasn't out to many people. Neither was he. And even though we never actually said we were together, it felt like we were walking along the same wire, balancing the same weight of uncertainty and curiosity. Then came the night he slept over. It wasn't planned. He just showed up at my apartment around 10 p.m., holding a six-pack and wearing that sheepish expression that meant he probably had something on his mind. "Long day?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. "You have no idea," he muttered, dropping onto my couch like his bones were made of cement. We drank, talked about nothing in particular. Eventually, he asked if he could crash on the couch. I offered my bed instead. He didn't argue. That night, as we lay side by side, not quite touching, I kept thinking about how surreal this all was. If someone had told high school me that Josh Langston would be in my bed, voluntarily, I'd have laughed in their face. But there he was, quiet, breathing evenly, not quite asleep. And then, in the dark, he whispered, "Do you ever wish we met some other way?" I turned slightly, trying to read his face in the faint glow from the window. "What do you mean?" "Not as enemies," he said. "Not as whatever we were, just as two guys who liked each other." I was quiet for a second. Then I said, "I don't know. If we'd met any other way, I don't think we'd be here now." He seemed to consider that. "Yeah," he said softly. "Maybe you're right." He reached for my hand under the covers, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I let myself believe this might actually be something real. The next morning, I woke up before him. It was still early, the room dim, with the blue-gray light of dawn. Josh was on his side, face half buried in the pillow, mouth slightly open in that completely unguarded way that only happens when someone's truly asleep. I watched him for a moment longer than I probably should have. There was something painfully human about seeing him like that, not the guy with the attitude. Not the sharp-tongued athlete, just a guy. A guy that first was starting to care about more than I knew how to handle. He stirred a little, then opened his eyes slowly. "Mornin'," he mumbled, voice hoarse. "Morning," I whispered back. A sleepy smile tugged at his lips. "You make coffee, or should I pretend to sleep until you do?" I rolled my eyes but got up. As I started the coffee machine, I felt him watching me from the bed. He didn't say anything, just observed, like he was trying to figure out if this us was real. By the time I brought him a mug, he was sitting up, blankets around his waist, hair a total mess. "This is weird, right?" he asked, taking the cup. I sat down next to him. "A little, but not bad weird." "No," I said, shaking my head. "Not bad." We drank in silence for a bit, the kind that was heavy but not uncomfortable. Then Josh looked at me and said, "I want to try." I raised an eyebrow. "Try what?" "You and me. For real." I felt something twist in my chest. Something nervous. Something hopeful. "I want that too," I said quietly. And just like that, the wire we'd been balancing on turned into something solid beneath our feet. After that morning, something about our rhythm shifted. Josh and I were no longer towing the edge. We were stepping into something real. And as much as we tried to keep it under wraps, people noticed things. It started small. His friends at the gym noticed he wasn't around as much. My roommates commented on how I was always smiling after shifts at the cafe. We thought we were being discreet, but you can only hide so much when the tension between you crackles like static. The first person to call it out was my friend Marcus. He cornered me after class one afternoon, a coffee in one hand and that sharp look he gets when he knows he's about to drag someone. "So," he said, casually leaning on the brick wall outside the building, "you and Josh Langston, what's the deal?" I froze mid-step. "What?" "Oh, come on, Eli. You think I haven't noticed him picking you up from work? Or how you've suddenly started wearing cologne?" "I've always worn cologne." He rolled his eyes. "You used to smell like detergent. Now you smell like intentions." I couldn't help but laugh. "We're figuring it out." He raised an eyebrow. "That means you're sleeping together but haven't had the talk?" I nearly choked on my sip of water. "Jesus, Marcus. No, we've had the talk." His smirk softened. "Good. Just be careful, okay? I remember what he used to be like." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Me too." But the truth was, Josh wasn't that guy anymore. At least not with me. Still, I understood Marcus's caution. I'd been cautious too. It was hard not to be when the person you're starting to love is also the one who once made you feel like crap for just existing. But Josh was trying. In ways that mattered. He introduced me to his sister when she visited for a weekend. He kept his arm on the back of my chair during group hangouts, not quite touching me, but close enough to feel his presence. He didn't flinch when someone called us a cute couple by mistake. And then, one night, he did something that really hit me. We were at a party off campus, packed with people and music that was too loud to enjoy. I was grabbing a drink from the kitchen when I saw him across the room talking to a guy the first didn't recognize. The guy leaned in close, laughing too much, hand brushing Josh's arm. Old me would have spiraled. I started to step back, retreat into my thoughts, but then Josh saw me. His whole expression shifted. His eyes found mine like a magnet, and within seconds he excused himself from the conversation and crossed the room. "You good?" he asked, already placing a hand lightly on my back. "Yeah," I said, surprised by how quickly the knot in my stomach dissolved. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "You want to head out?" "I'd rather just be with you." I nodded. And just like that, we slipped out into the cool night air. We walked in silence for a while, the sound of our footsteps mingling with the distant noise from the party. Then Josh stopped, pulling me gently by the arm. "I want people to know," he said. I blinked. "Know what?" "About us." My heart stuttered. "You sure?" He nodded. "I'm tired of acting like what we have is some secret. I want to hold your hand in public. I want to be that guy who shows up with you and doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks." I stared at him, trying to process it. This was the same Josh who once laughed with his buddies while I stood alone at lunch. And now, he was standing in front of me, vulnerable and open. "I want that too," I said finally. And so we did. The next week, Josh kissed me goodbye in front of the cafe. It wasn't anything wild, just a quick press of lips. But people saw. Heads turned. One girl gasped. Someone whispered Josh's name like it was scandalous. He just smiled, pulled me closer, and said, "Let them talk." And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. Coming out, sort of, was freeing, but it wasn't without fallout. Josh and I didn't make a big announcement or post a couple's photo on Instagram. We didn't have to. That one kiss outside the cafe did most of the heavy lifting. By the time I made it to class that day, my phone was buzzing with texts. Some were from friends. "Dude, you and Langston?" Others weren't as friendly. "What the hell, man? You serious?" And of course, "Since when are you into guys?" Josh handled it better than I expected. He didn't shrink from the attention, didn't backtrack or pretend it didn't happen. If someone brought it up, he'd just shrug and say, "Yeah, and?" But I could tell it got to him, especially with his teammates. He didn't talk about it much, but I noticed he stopped hanging around the gym as often. He skipped a few practices. When I asked, he waved it off, but I knew better. Then, one night, it all came to a head. We were sitting on the couch at my apartment, half watching some terrible action movie, when he got a text. His phone buzzed once, then again, then again. He stared at the screen for a long time, jaw tight. "You okay?" I asked. Josh didn't look up. "My captain wants to talk." That sounds vague and ominous. "Yeah," he set his phone down. "He's been getting shit from a couple guys on the team. About me, about us." I shifted closer, reaching for his hand. "You want me to say something?" He shook his head. "No, this is my mess." I hated that he called it that. Like being with me was a problem he had to fix. But I didn't say that. Instead, I said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." Josh looked at me then, and I could see the weariness in his eyes. Not fear, exactly, but fatigue. Like he'd been holding something heavy for a long time and just needed to put it down. "I know," he said. "It's just, I worked hard to get where I am. I don't want to lose all of it." "You won't," I said, even if I wasn't entirely sure it was true. The meeting with his captain happened the next day. Josh wouldn't let me come with him, said it was something he had to handle alone. So I waited. Tried to focus on my work. Failed. He came by later that night, slumped against my door like he'd just run a marathon. "Well?" I asked, heart in my throat. He pushed his way in, dropped his backpack, and collapsed onto my bed. "They're not kicking me off the team," he said. Relief washed over me. "That's good." He nodded slowly. "They just don't get it. Some of them. And I guess that's not going to change overnight." I sat beside him, letting the silence settle between us for a bit. "You still want this?" I asked quietly. Josh looked up, eyes locking with mine. "I want you." It was the most certain I'd ever heard him sound. He leaned in, kissed me. Slow, deliberate, and for a few minutes there was no noise. No team, no campus gossip. Just us. Later, lying in bed, he whispered, "I don't care if I lose everything else, but I'm not losing this." And for once, I believed him. Spring rolled around, and with it came longer days, campus buzz, and a general air of restlessness. Finals were creeping up, and everything felt urgent. Except for us. Somehow, despite the drama, despite the awkward stares and rumors, Josh and I had settled into something solid. It was never flashy. We weren't the couple making out on the quad or sharing cringy matching outfits. But he'd hold my hand during movies. He'd kiss my neck when I was cooking. And he'd whisper dumb little things when I was stressed that always made me laugh, even when I didn't want to. Still, there was one thing we hadn't done yet. He hadn't taken me home. I didn't ask about it at first. I figured it was a boundary, and I had plenty of those too. But one Saturday, we were walking back from the grocery store, arms full of snacks and frozen pizza, when he casually said, "Hey, want to come to my mom's place next weekend?" I blinked. "Wait, seriously?" "Yeah," he said, shifting the bag on his shoulder. "She's been asking about you." "She knows about me?" "She knows there's a guy the first like." "I want her to meet you." I stopped walking. He turned back to look at me. "You sure?" Josh nodded. "I've never been more sure." So that next weekend, I found myself sitting in a cozy living room in a small house outside the city, sipping tea and watching Josh's mom tell embarrassing stories about his childhood. She was warm, welcoming, and so completely chill about everything that I wondered why he'd ever been afraid to tell her. That night, after dinner and too much pie, we ended up on the back porch. It was quiet, just the two of us, the stars out and the air cool. "You know," I said, "you're not the guy the first thought you were." Josh looked over at me. "Yeah? You're better." He smiled, then nudged my shoulder. "That mean I finally wore you down?" "No," I said, grinning. "It means you earned it." He leaned in and kissed me then, slower than usual, more intentional, like he was trying to say something without words. And I got it. We weren't perfect. We still had baggage, and we still fought sometimes. Mostly about stupid things like laundry or which cereal was better, but we'd found each other in the middle of all the noise. Against the odds, against the history, we'd built something real. He pulled back and rested his forehead against mine. "I love you," he said, like it was the simplest truth in the world. I didn't hesitate. "I love you too." And just like that, the story that started with tension, sarcasm, and years of misunderstanding turned into something I never expected. A beginning.